my mom, my brother, and I went to our local Walmart to get a 1-inch paintbrush to complete a home improvement project. This was 1992. It was a 115-degree day. It was August 10th, 1992. We breeze through the checkout line. We get to the car. If you've been watching for 4 seconds, you know I talk fast. I'm loud. I have a lot of energy. So it wasn't a surprise to my mom and brother that I was the first one to the car. Okay, but this was back in the days when there was key fobs. So I had to wait for my mom to literally stick her hand in the purse, grab her key, stick it in the door, and turn it so that we could go on with our way. And as I'm standing there waiting for that, a truck pulled up in front of the store, parked, and the driver and middle passenger got out. Now, the passenger all the way to the right felt the truck moving backwards. So he did what any one of us would do and scooted over to put his foot on the brake. But he instead hit the gas. Combination of shock and force threw him up on the steering wheel, up on the dashboard, and before you know it, he's catapulting 40 miles an hour across the parking lot right at me with no time to react. Hit our car, knocked out, ran over me, tore my spleen, left a tire track scar on my stomach, and then continued on to completely sever my left arm from my body. My brother, who's 14 months older, was with my mom at the time, and the next thing she heard was his voice saying, "Mom, Brian's arm is over there." And as she gazed up and looked across the parking lot over those 10-foot trails, she saw my muscle cooking like hamburger on the parking lot. Okay? Now, I always have to call attention to the woman who literally saved my life that day. My mom is hugely responsible for me being here, but there was a nurse that walked out of the store right when that took place. Wow. And she saw the literal life and limb scenario right in front of her, and she went immediately into action. She came over and stopped the bleeding on the main wound, saved my life, and instructed some innocent bystanders to go inside, fill a cooler, and get mine attached to them on ice within minutes to give me a fighting chance of having a reattached arm. So if it wasn't for this woman, I either wouldn't be here with you today, or I'd be here today with a cleaned up stump. And so this is where I want to normalize my portion of the story, because yes, I know how unique my story is. The more I've told it for the last 31 years, the more obvious it becomes how unique my story is. However, every single one of you has a unique story. Yeah. And I've learned that over these last 31 years as well. So regardless of the extremities of your story, what's important is that you learn to pause and become aware of the lessons you can extract from your stories so you can become intentional in how you apply those moving forward. And we all have the ability to do that. We also all have the ability to tap into the collective wisdom of other people's stories to shorten our own curve to learning. So hopefully some of my stories, some of my truth will give you permission to live yours.
Man, first off, you haven't said that before, ever, I can tell. No, I'm just joking. Like the way that you just story tell, you're such a great storyteller, but it's like the details. I'm like taking notes in my head about like adding in times of days and temperatures outside just to put people inside of that. So the people that are listening here are both entrepreneurs, speakers, authors, teachers, trainers, coaches, and also just the human who is just trying to do a little more and live a little lighter. And so I wanted to take note to that first off, to just say amazing in that regard. And then to come into the human side of what was transpiring in that, not only from your mom, we talked about motherhood a lot already in the show, which I'm sure those listeners are like, wait, what's going on? This is a dude. But it's amazing to know the lens in which the mom is taking, because that was immediately where I was put in that scenario, not me as the person who had been run over, but the mother who was just witnessing this happen. So the trauma and the guilt and all these other emotions that I'm sure she felt as a bystander, and then to that incredible nurse. But I love the next step, which is you're not really in synchronicity with a lot of people. I do think of Amberly Lago, though. Are you familiar with Amberly? Have you met her?
You know what? I am. I don't know her well, but I'm familiar with her. And
okay.
The name has crossed across my desk like probably 50 times.
Gosh, you guys have to connect because you're going to share so much in the healing process, I'm sure. But hers was her leg, and the hope of keeping it was 1% chance is what the doctors gave her to keep it. So I can't imagine what happened next with you as only a 7-year-old boy in the mindset work and the emotional work that happened on the other side.
Well, I mean, there's a long story to answer that full question, because the emotional work didn't start for 20 to 25 years later, but we'll get to that, I'm sure. But what did happen? I remember laying in that bed feeling sorry for myself, even at 7, asking myself, why me, why me, why me? And then we got overwhelmed with the number of people that were coming up to us who were families in the ICU saying, we're so sorry for what happened. We're so sorry for what happened to you. How can we help you? And then come to find out that their kid's laying in the hospital bed next to me with a terminal illness and doesn't know if they're going to live for another 30 days. I didn't know if I'd have function on my left arm at that point in my life, but my life was secure.
Right.
And so that literally shifted my perspective immediately. And that was one of the first core lessons that I started to apply, which is I learned not to get stuck by the things that have happened to me, but instead get moved by what I can do with them. And I believe that moved people move people. So I'm just trying to move as many as I can.